Hey guys, welcome back to HD Movie Recaps. Today we're diving into a powerful and heartbreaking based on true story movie called The Basketball Diaries from 1995. In the beginning of the story, we see a classroom where a boy named Jim is being beaten badly by his teacher. But just then the bell rings, ending the period. After that, Jim walks out with his three best friends, Pedro, Mickey, and Neutron. All of them smoke, cause trouble, and never think twice before doing anything. They even pour thinner on cloth and inhale it to get high. But Jim has one special talent. He's an excellent basketball player. Their school's team plays a match against another school, and Jim performs brilliantly, leading them to victory. However, during the match, one of Jim's friends sneaks into the locker room and steals all the money, watches, and important belongings of the opposing players. Later, when the four of them are sitting in a restaurant, the other team members show up and tell them to come outside. They accuse them of stealing their things and demand they return them quietly. But Jim and his friends refuse the allegations, which leads to a big fight between the two groups. However, Jim and his friends beat them up and run away. That night, while they are hanging out, a girl approaches them completely high on drugs, asking for $50 and offering herself in return because she needs money to buy more drugs. But Jim mocks her and sends her away. After that, Jim goes to a hospital where he meets Bobby, someone he has known since he was 3 years old. Bobby used to be the best basketball player on their team, but 2 years ago, he found out he had leukemia. Jim is certain Bobby will fight through it, survive, and he truly wishes for that from the bottom of his heart because Bobby is the closest friend he has in the world. Jim takes him out to a strip show where women take off their clothes to perform. But Bobby doesn't enjoy it, so Jim brings him back to the hospital. Apart from basketball, there's another thing in Jim's life. His writing. Whenever he has time or a thought comes to his mind, he writes it down in his notebook. But Jim spends almost all his time with his three friends, always having fun, even visiting prostitutes. One prostitute even gives him drugs, which he takes. And after sleeping with her, he writes that experience in his notebook too. A few days later, Bobby passes away, and when Jim goes to see him, his body has turned skeletal. Even though he is only 16, he now looks like he's 60. This completely breaks Jim. One day, while returning from a movie with his friends, he realizes he doesn't even remember the scenes or story. While Bobby's death doesn't seem to affect his three friends much, but Jim is deeply hurt. He goes to a basement where people are using needle drugs. Though Jim has always been terrified of needles, but he takes it for the first time in his life. The moment he does, all his pain disappears. He feels like he's running through fields of flowers and everything around him seems beautiful. When Jim gets home, his mom sees the state he's in and feels deeply hurt. She works at a hospital and tries to understand him, but Jim tells her she doesn't know anything. Slowly, Jim and his friends become addicted to the drug. But it's expensive and they need money. One night, the four of them rob an old woman walking down a dark street, even hitting her before running away with her purse. The next day, when they attend the school church service, which is mandatory, Jim says he won't go for confession. The father asks why, and Jim replies, he just doesn't feel like it. The father tells him that maybe he's the one who needs confession the most. Jim then steps into the confession booth, a place where a person can speak their heart to the father, knowing it will never be shared. Jim wants to tell him everything about the drugs, but he can't. He wants to quit, yet every time he promises himself, it's the last time that last time never comes. Because while a person might want to quit drugs, drugs never want to quit the person. One day while Jim is using drugs in the school restroom, his coach walks in. Jim hides his pills, but the coach seems to pick up on something and tries to give Jim money in exchange for sexual favors.
I made a mistake, all right.
The coach offers him money again, asking him not to tell anyone, and Jim takes the money but warns him never to say or try something like that again. The coach leaves, but now he also knows that Jim is using drugs. Now, their basketball match takes place, and before it starts, they open their lockers and take out drug pills. Just then their fourth friend, Neutron, arrives and warns them not to take pills before the match. But except for Neutron, the other three still take them. When the game begins, Jim and his other friend who took the pills perform terribly. They can't even see the ball clearly, and they lose the match badly. The school's father arrives with the police already knowing they use drugs, and they search their lockers, but nothing is found because they had already taken everything. Jim and his two friends leave the school, while Neutron stays behind because he doesn't want to follow them. When Jim reaches home, his mom asks why he was expelled. He claims it's a conspiracy against them and that they never took any pills. And she tells him to leave the house as he walks away. His mom throws his basketball trophy, his symbol of success, out the window. Jim tells her he will never come back and she will never see him again. His mom, loving him deeply, begs him not to say that because she doesn't want him to ruin his life. But in front of Jim lies his broken dream shattered in the form of that trophy. But now Jim and his friends need money for drugs. So they start stealing cars. They live with people who are also addicted, completely drowning themselves in the world of drugs. For them, this is the only real world. Nothing outside it matters. Slowly their habits get worse, they even go to rob a store. But Pedro is so high that he starts hallucinating, thinking he's in an ice cream parlor. Jim and Mickey have no choice but to leave him there, and the police arrest Pedro. Later, Jim and Mickey go to a bar where the TV is showing news about Neutron, who they used to play basketball with, now selected for the All-American High School games, making their families proud. He even says hey to his mom on TV. This was once Jim and Mickey's dream too, and they could have been on that team. After this, Jim goes near his house and secretly watches his mom carrying things inside. But he doesn't have the courage to talk to her. He walks back to the place where he takes drugs. There, a guy suddenly attacks him because Jim had given this man's girlfriend a strong drug that almost killed her. Jim's mind completely stops functioning. He starts having intense hallucinations. He sees himself playing basketball, then getting shot, then seeing the basketball net on fire, and even notices he's wearing his basketball uniform. But all of it is just an illusion. He's lying almost dead on the snow in the freezing cold. When a man comes by, it's Reggie. Back when Jim wasn't using drugs, he used to practice basketball with Reggie. Who knows? Jim is a very talented player. Seeing him in such a state, Reggie picks him up and takes him to his home. The next morning, when Jim wakes up, he puts on his clothes to leave. But when he checks his pocket, his drugs are not there.
Where is it?
But Reggie says no. He won't let Jim destroy his life and flushes the drugs down the toilet right in front of him. This sends Jim into a complete frenzy, screaming that Reggie must pay him back for the drugs because now he can't live without them. But Reggie, stronger than this addict, completely controls the situation. When Jim asks why he's doing this, Reggie says it's because someone once helped him too, and he's been grateful ever since. Jim begs him over and over, but Reggie doesn't give in. Jim says the room is spinning, but Reggie just sits outside the door, not letting him leave, keeping him there. When Jim becomes a little calmer, Reggie tells him he has to go to work and will be back in the morning, and that Jim must control himself. He also says, when you write your book, mention my name, because Jim is always writing and his diary is still in his pocket, which Reggie has read. Then Reggie leaves. Jim tries to control himself, but soon the spinning starts again. He searches the house for money, but finds nothing. So he goes to see a girl named Diane. There was a time when Diane once asked Jim and his friends for money to buy drugs back when they themselves didn't use, and Jim had mocked her for it. Now Jim stands in the exact place Diane once did, asking her for money. Diane doesn't want to give it, but he practically begs. So she pulls cash from her bag and throws it on the ground the way someone would to a beggar in anger. Jim shouts after her, calling her a prostitute. But once she's gone, he picks up the money because he's reached a point in life where dignity and respect no longer matter. But the money isn't enough to buy drugs. So Jim does something he never thought he would. He engages in prostitution with an old man in a public restroom just to get the cash for drugs. With the money in hand, he goes to his friend Mickey, and together they visit a drug dealer who sells them drugs. But when they test it, they realize it's fake. They chase the dealer all the way to a rooftop, demanding their money back as Mickey grabs him. The man slips and falls off the roof to his death. Mickey runs, but when he reaches the street, a gang catches him, beats him badly, and the police arrest him. Then Jim heads home. But even after everything, he still wants drugs. He begs his mom for $20, saying he really needs it and that he's her son. His mom refuses to let him in because she knows he'll use it for drugs, though she loves him deeply. She calls the police, believing that if he stays outside, he'll keep using and maybe prison will help him change. The police take him away. Jim realizes his mistakes and tells his mom he will change and be the way he was before. But she can't help him now. For all his crimes, Jim is sentenced to 6 months in jail. During those months, he finishes writing his diary. When he's released, he stands outside a stage door because today he's going to read his diary in front of an audience. There he meets his friend Pedro, the one who was arrested first. Pedro tells him he has some really good drugs and offers them, but Jim refuses. He can't go back to that life and tells Pedro to take care of himself. Then Jim walks on stage and reads his diary to the crowd, and they love it, clapping loudly. In the end, we're told that Jim finished his diary, The Basketball Diaries, at the age of 17, and it became very famous by the time he was 22. He had published 3 volumes of poetry, recorded for albums, and continued living in New York City, working as a poet, musician, novelist, and performer until 2009. Then he died on September 11th, 2009. And that's the story of a young man who lost everything and found himself not on the basketball court, but in the pages of his own diary, The Basketball Diaries. Thanks for watching.